Don't miss the Morning Brew with Brooks Brewer, the Brewmeister, weekdays at 7 a.m. here on KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jahu Jifkinas. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew in beautiful sunny downtown Okmulgee today. We thank you for listening in today. Our sidewalk superintendent report, the sun is bright and shiny on the council house today. Not too much activity. I presume they're doing a lot of inside kind of things. But it looks like it's just ready to go, and I'm anxious to see what it looks like. Okay, we've got a couple things to share with you on today's program. First of all, we'll be speaking with Cheryl Sarber, who is, I hope you'll correct me on that, who is the pretty much the head honcho there at the new Okemah Indian Hospital over in Okemah. She'll be giving us kind of a status report on how it's doing, projections for openings of services, the A to Z of this brand new, beautiful looking facility. And in our second segment, at the beginning of September, the Circle Theater in Tulsa was part of the annual Tribal Indian Film Festival. Those folks from Mvskoke running that one. And we traveled up there because they had an interesting guest. The well-known Indian actor Wes Study was there for the local premiere of his film Hostiles. And we spoke with him and Cecilia Thunder about Indian movie production, films, a state-of-the-art sort of thing, and enjoyed talking with an old friend, Wes Study there. So we'll have that in the second section. And, of course, a few community announcements and information like that we hope you will find useful. First of all, let me welcome Ms. Sarber to the program. No, pronounce that for me so I can get it right.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Sharber Howell.
Sharber. Thank
I'm
you.
the administrator for Creek Nation Community Hospital and Okemah Indian Health Clinic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you setting us straight on that one. Well, I appreciate you making time, traveling up the road to come in and talk with us. Now, a lot of people have been kind of looking forward to this new facility down in Okemah to replace the about 70-year-old hospital there that certainly was showing its age. It was just old, folks. I mean, it got used well during its prime, and now it's time for a new one there, and we've got one just about ready to fling open its doors. So first of all, let's start there. What have we got? It's a new Indian, the Creek Nation Community Hospital, I understand is the correct name. Is that right?
Yes, the Mvskoke Creek Nation Community Hospital and Okemah Indian Health Clinic is the new facility name. And a little background on the facility. The old facility was built in 1948 and operated as Mvskoke Memorial. Creek Nation took over the facility in 1977 and have expanded operations out there over the years. And the building is aged, and we have absolutely outgrown our space. So in 2015, they began construction of a new facility on I-40 just outside of Okemah.
All right. Now, I have to admit I was there some years ago doing a story on its condition when part of its certification was in question, shall we say, by state health authorities. And because of its age and its usage, you could see where paint was peeling and there was watermarks in the tiles. And I went into the men's restroom there in the lobby, and my eyes almost started watering. It was pretty raunchy, let's say. The folks there said, "Oh, we do a wonderful job," and I said, "Well, I'll have to question you on that one, and let's leave it at that. And during our discussion, I first heard that there's a plan in the works to replace that hospital with a new facility down there. And I thought, no, Lord, thank you. It's wonderful to hear that kind of information being shared. So let's travel back in time while we're there. Now, when did this idea, I guess, first start getting kicked around real seriously?
Well, and I believe that the survey you're speaking about with the state that was not favorable was approximately 2010.
Okay, yeah.
There was a state survey, and of course the facility is dilapidated. It's old. It's hard to maintain.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, the surveyors did find several items that were corrected. Some renovations were done. The facility's passed survey every year since then. Those items were addressed immediately. And then the talks of a new facility began.
The news just really excited me. I thought, oh boy, the folks down here really don't have much else in the way of a medical resource down there. First of all, that's about
correct.
A 70-mile radius or so.
You have the Wewoka Clinic, which is about 35 miles from us. But then other than that, you've got Claremore and Ada.
Right, and Wewoka was nowhere near able to deliver the services at the hospital.
It's a very small service unit.
Now, I think it's important to mention, too, that you've got a federal highway going past you right, a few miles away, and if anything unfortunate happens there, the old hospital used to have to take care of injuries and things like that.
Yes, we service I-40 for probably about a 15-mile radius before it overlaps with another emergency ambulance service.
Right, and one more step in that direction, you also serve the community there. I think that's important.
Yes, the hospital is a community service. The hospital includes the emergency room, the inpatient beds, the x-ray department, and the lab department.
And that's for anybody who needs it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that's critical to say that.
Very critical, especially in our location.
Right, it's not just Indians only. They recognize the need to serve the community.
Absolutely.
All right, now we've got before us, I presume, an artist's conception of what the new facility looks like or should look like. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, that is accurate.
And let's get a description of what you got there in that brand new shiny facility.
The campus consists of 4 buildings. One building is wellness. One building is the emergency medical service, which is the ambulances, and one building is the maintenance. The main building has 3 sections. In those 3 sections, one section is the clinical services, which is for Native Americans. It includes primary care, pharmacy, optometry, and diabetes. Diabetes is in the wellness center itself. The center section are the hospital services, which include the inpatient beds, the lab, the x-ray, and the surgery suites. The farthest east section of the building is the emergency room, which is the hospital and the emergency room, once again, are community services.
Now, these are pretty much the same kind of things you would expect and could find in pretty much any other hospital.
Yes, typical hospital services.
Now, and using the term hospital, I presume that it's bigger, it has more to offer than the usual Indian health clinics.
Yes, and the hospitals in their licensure are certified as certain levels. We're certified as a level 4 facility, to where in an emergency we stabilize and transfer to a higher level of care for services that we cannot render.
So if there's a huge collision on the highway involving several cars and a lot of people with serious injuries, you could perhaps do, their first round, what do they call it, triage?
Triage or divert. And our ambulance responds to a lot of calls for wrecks on I-40, and they have state protocols that they follow, and certain criteria, they'll automatically launch an air ambulance or a helicopter to meet them on the highway.
Mm-hmm. So that's an important link. So
yes,
there are things there that you can't handle, and those patients would be selected and sent to another facility
for rapid response. Yes,
the idea is so wonderful that those folks down there now really are going to be getting the medical services that really meet their needs. So our compliments to the Department of Health on getting that together. Now, it's been a long process. There was always the challenges of funding and staffing and those things. Now, with the Department of Health kind of emerging now from its recent major budget crisis, have things pretty well settled down to the point where you can just think about getting along with the business end of it?
They have, and looking at expanding services under the direction of Secretary of Health, things have changed greatly. And assessing the need for certain services, specialties, and those kind of things, we are doing at that time and bringing those services to the citizens.
Now, you used the phrase expanding services. What are you looking at there?
Like maybe offering some specialty services so we don't have to send people to Tulsa to obtain those services. Cardiology, nephrology, those kind of things.
Nephrology
would be a kidney specialist.
Okay, because that one went right over my head. That's okay. Well, the idea is that it sounds like it's well planned out and big enough to do the job, but not get excessive in its size or its budget, I presume.
Yes.
Now, one of the latest items that's come out has been moving the health center to the location at the new hospital. Right?
Mm-hmm. We had initially planned to move the entire campus to the new facility on December 1st. The hospital is still pending state final inspection, so we cannot move the hospital services until that inspection is completed, and we do not have a date on that as of yet. On December 1st, we did move the clinic to the new site, which is 1800 East Copland Road, just right there on I-40 in Okemah. We moved the primary care clinic, the optometry clinic, we moved the pharmacy and the diabetes program. And then that following week, on Monday, December 4th, CHR, the community health representatives, and behavioral health also moved on campus with us, to where before they were housed in separate buildings within the community.
Now, I use the Sapulpa facility, and everything you mentioned is kind of covered in some fashion at that clinic. Now, so we're talking about essentially the same kind of things there?
Yes, all services inclusive there at that one site.
So have people actually been referred and you're seeing them now there?
Yes, we are. We are, and the referral process has always been in place. It's just where they're going to now.
Yeah, with the rural location and population heavily Native American plus the rest of the community, what kind of medical challenges are you all facing there? Is there something that kind of keeps reoccurring that you have to deal with, or is it just a real wide variety of things?
It's a wide variety of things. It's typical rural health. A lot of people in rural areas have problems with access to care, transportation. A lot of times people's phone numbers change frequently, getting hold of patients, to keep them updated, to give reminders and things like that. That's why it's very important for our patients to keep their contact information updated.
Now, I guess I've been watching too much TV that when I see a rural situation, I tend to think of people who are senior citizens,
yes,
this kind of stuff, and perhaps having to deal with the ailments that affect us folks. Now, I guess I'm in that category now. Is that true, or is it?
It is true. The majority, I would say, our biggest primary care population are elderly, or maybe the young. And usually the young, it's for acute care needs, like ear infections, sore throats, those kind of things.
And you did mention that you have to deal with some of the accidents.
Yes, and the accidents on the highway and those kind of things.
Okay, so it seems like then you would have a good relationship with the Highway Patrol and DOT.
We do. With local law authorities, we all work hand in hand to provide services to the citizens in the communities. The
facility now, let's get a description of what you've got there, like how many beds and whatever else is something that you can...
The old site? The new site.
The new site, yeah.
The new site, we'll be a licensed 24-bed critical access hospital, and a critical access hospital certification comes from the state, and it's a specific licensure for small rural hospitals. It helps us get a little bit better reimbursement rates through Medicare to help support rural health. We will have 24 beds. We have 2 ORs in the hospital. We will have our emergency room right now has 4 beds. We are expanding our emergency room to have 14 beds. And the emergency room has a physician on duty 24 hours a day. Also in the hospital, the lab services, the lab department itself has expanded greatly. We'll still be able to offer the same services, maybe a few more additional tests, but the facility itself, the department itself has grown. Radiology will be there. We will be getting a new CAT scan in the new hospital, so we will have CT availability.
So I guess you can a fancy schmancy X-ray kind of
Exactly.
thing. Okay.
Yes.
The one of the questions I know we've had to deal with lately is how patients would pay for what they get. I would presume most of them would Native people would be covered under the treaty relationship with us, but also the health department has been calling for private insurance lately too. Is that?
Yes, and part of, if you'll remember in previous presidential administrations, the Affordable Care Act, screening people for eligibility for coverage, and we're continuing to do that. In some instances, people can get private insurance for little or no monthly payment.
Which is very nice considering the soaring costs of medical care and medicines these
Yes.
days. So does that mean that only Indians get this kind of help, or the non-native patients, people in need of care?
Everyone's eligible for that assistance.
Okay. Now, there's always the question, of course, and this is getting political, but the Congress has been wrestling with the effort to repeal affordable care, Obamacare as they prefer to call it. And does that have any problem signs for you? I mean, do you have to look at, well, if this changes, we may be facing more of a deficit?
Absolutely. Anytime you cut things like that, you're potentially cut funding, reimbursement rates for the facilities.
And that translates into what for patients?
Decreased funding to provide health care.
Which means you might have to wait longer, or
maybe services won't be available.
Mm-hmm. I know contract care is a good red flag on that sort of thing. Somebody once said if you're not sick by June, then you're out of luck for the rest of the year because their money's gone.
Funding will be out, yes.
Yeah, I know my father ran into that once where he was referred and they said, well, can't help you, we don't have the funds. I was kind of peeved at that one. I said, well, why not? That's what you guys do, isn't it? He said, well, we only get this much to work with.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And that's where, more people that are eligible and sign up for things like Affordable Care Act help our funding go farther.
Mm-hmm. Now, the projections for the future are that the concerns over funding in the budget have been let's just say, dealt with at the moment. I wouldn't say finalized or cleared off the board or anything, but it's a picture that looked much nicer than it did a year or two ago.
Yes.
So what's that financial status like? I mean, you're sitting there having to worry about these sorts of things. Everything looking stable, or is there going to be a challenge in the future?
Right now, everything looks stable. Of course, with the current presidential administration and the changes they make, you don't know how that's going to affect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's becoming a bigger question these days, as I don't believe they've confirmed what would you, top administrator, what would they call it? Would that be an assistant secretary or just, gosh, I can't remember the right word for administrator for IHS.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, the top dog for IHS. I don't think they've settled that, nor the BIA. So that would seem to have things kind of in a wait and see situation, kind of in limbo.
Kind of in limbo, yes.
So how does that affect you with you and your crew, boots on the ground people?
Well, we keep providing the services we can, and once again, we keep trying to sign people up for things that are. That they are eligible for, and hoping if something changes with that they'll get grandfathered in, is the hopes.
Now, I know that was quite a question in the past few years, of like somebody would be approved for something, and then later on you'd find out, well, we can't do this because we simply don't have the money. So are people going to be still running into that kind of thing?
I think there's the potential. I mean, I can't tell you yes or no.
Yeah. Can't or won't. Hey.
Won't.
No, I'm just teasing.
No,
I understand it's never as simple.
Well, and rural health in the United States as a whole is difficult. Hospitals close all the time.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're seeing that situation here in our state where the small towns that used to have these can't afford them.
Yes.
And they have to close up, and then people have to drive further. And I would presume a time element is important in many critical situations.
Be. Yeah, and some people may have to drive an hour or more to have access to any kind of medical care, much less emergency care.
So if you've got a cardiac problem, you're looking at life or death kind of thing.
Absolutely. They call that the golden hour.
Yikes. Okay, folks, if you're going to get in trouble there, you might want to do it near a hospital if you can. Now, I know that, of course, the state is dealing with its own budget problems and things like that, and people are wondering what's going on now. With our Oklahoma Department of Health, folks are saying, wait a minute here, there's $30 million you guys can't account for. Mm-hmm. Now, in any sense, does that affect what you all do?
Because we are licensed by the state health department, it will affect us, not necessarily directly their budget, but their staffing and their access to us to be able to send inspectors, because the labs are inspected, the kitchens are inspected, the hospitals are inspected by state employees. And just recently they put out something that they were laying off more than 100 Oklahoma State Department of Health employees.
Right, I remember that, and I think the figure actually, one I heard was up to 200. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether it was Dorflinger or one of those folks up top dog types said that, well, these were redundant positions or there was some bloating in the staff. From your point of view, from your perspective, would you agree with what they were saying? Or I hate to put you on the spot, but it's.
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, we definitely need the services they provide to us.
Sure. Is there anything that you're looking at in the future now that could affect your delivery of services, or anything that might put a little bit of worry in the back of your mind?
Not nothing I can identify right now. We are providing services in the hospital and the clinic. They're just at different locations right now. Once we get final clearance from the state, hoping those layoffs don't affect that, we will combine all our services once again, and after we get all our services moved onto the same campus, we will host a grand opening, invite citizens and diplomats and other people.
That was my next question, is when?
Don't have a date. I can't set a date. It's all dependent on the state.
So I'm going to go one more step in that direction, so a month or two, or?
Hopefully within the next, I hope personally within the next 3 months. I hope it doesn't take that long, because once we get final clearance from the state, we have to also set up schedules for some of our vendors that host some of our services, our electronic systems, our CAT scans, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. The idea of its opening is one that I know our crew at Mvskoke Media is looking forward to. Oh boy, we get to finally cover that. Mm-hmm. It may be another ribbon cutting kind of thing, but the important thing is those doors will be opening then.
Yes, absolutely. And the doors are still open at the old facility, so hospital services are still at the old facility at 309 North 14th. That's the emergency room, the inpatient, the lab, and the radiology department. The clinical services have moved to the new site.
And you can be taken care of there.
Absolutely.
Just because it's old doesn't mean it doesn't work.
Right.
Now, the future is something we want to look at for a second or two here. Is there anything else on the drawing board then for your facility, or that you're aware of with the Department of Health that might?
Not that I'm aware of. Our new facility was designed to incorporate spaces for future expansion. Should we need to add more departments, more services, those kinds of things, those were planned for in the design.
Mm-hmm. Are there new technologies that you're seeing on the horizon that might be of major use to our population here?
I think the newest thing that's come out for us that helps our population is the MRI placement here in Okemah.
MRI?
MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. It's a step up from a CT scan.
Okay, which is a step up from an X-ray.
General X-ray, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And we do have that service available here in Okemah at the medical center.
Okay. Now, I'm getting a lot of questions here, but most of them don't have a thing to do with your facility down there, like, the one down the road over here, and talking to Mr. Terry again, but I guess I'll have to talk to him about it.
Yes, you will.
Now, one of the major points of contention or gripes, let's just call it gripes, among Native patients have been sometimes the waiting period. Mm-hmm. You get in and you've got a scheduled appointment, but the time may not work out the way you want it to, or it may be longer, things like that. Do you expect to be able to tackle those kinds of problems?
We do expect to. You have to remember, in our primary care, we were previously operating out of 9 rooms. We're now operating out of 24 rooms, so we'll be able to room and move patients faster. And also on our schedules here in Okemah, we do have some same-day slots available. So if patients call first thing in the morning, they can get a same-day appointment if needed for an acute care need, such as fever, sore throat, ear infections, those kind of things.
And if it's an emergency, you have...
Absolutely, go to the emergency room.
The other problems, were staffing. Sometimes I hear that the clinics are just kind of overwhelmed by the need, mm-hmm. and they just don't have enough folks to tackle them out. Do you see yourself adequately there, or do you look to expand your crew?
We look to expand at Okemah. Right now I have a physician, I have 2 physician assistants and 1 clinical nurse specialist, which gives me 4 providers. I hope to add another physician.
Yeah, of course, when you say providers, we're talking doctors.
Doctors, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants.
Right. People get behind the buzzwords sometimes.
Yeah.
They ask you, who's your key provider? And I said, my what? Oh, you mean my doctor?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they call them now, is primary care providers.
Yeah, well, they can have it, as long as I get what I need. The rest of it kind of looks pretty rosy, I would say. Then how would you characterize what the horizon looks like there?
I think things are looking good for the Department of Health. I think with our new leadership and our new direction, I think we're expanding services, meeting needs of the citizens, and putting services in areas where they are needed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, once again, let's come back to an opening date, which you haven't been able to...
No, we don't have a set opening date.
But you're looking at within perhaps this next 3 months?
Personally, that's my hope.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sometimes they get away from you, I guess, and
yes.
when they're out of your control there. Okay, well, before we go here in the last minute or two, is there anything else that perhaps our listeners might need to know about the new projected date for the Okemah Center or the hospital?
Just remember that the hospital services are still at the old site. The clinic services are at the new site, and access to the new site is off of I-40 going south down Highway 27, less than a half a block, and then going east, and it's about 1.5 miles down the road. You can't miss it if you come in on I-40. Beautiful facility.
Okay, so it's near where the old one is.
It's 3 miles from the old one.
Okay, good. I think that's
yes.
important because people...
3.3 miles from the old location.
And don't have a wreck on interstate there, folks, and put them to work. Well, Cheryl Sarber, please thank you so much for coming up and sharing this information. I know that a lot of people will be looking forward to maybe using your services for their needs and hopefully not for emergencies and things like that.
Thank you for the invite.
It's a pleasure. We'll keep our eye on it, and I'm sure we'll be there when you cut the ribbon, all right?
Thank you.
Okay, Madoe. All right, we're going to take a short pause here, and we'll be back with our taped interview at the Circle Theater in Tulsa with the coordinator for the film festival and native actor Wes Study. So please stay with us here on 1240 The Brew.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians. Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
All right, welcome back to Mvskoke Radio here on 1240 The Brew. I'm Gary Fife. We took time at the beginning of September to trot up to Tulsa. They had their third annual Indian Film Festival there, and one of the films on their list was being, let's call it premiered there at the Circle Theater in Tulsa. Now, I remember that theater when I was a kid, and you could get a ticket for about 50 cents, I think. And, a long time ago. It gives you an idea of how old I am, which is old now. Anyway, that place has been revamped, and it's been a pretty welcome spot for Native American film material in the last few years. Works by several different Native film producers have shown there, and this time they had one called Hostile, and they brought their guest star Wes Study in to talk about the film, and they presented him with a career honor there as part of their celebration. It was, as Xavier said, a celebration of indigenous film. Now, we managed to get a few minutes to talk with Ms. Xavier and also the star of that film, Wes Study. He was there, of course, with several other Hollywood notables, but for us, he was the star of the show. And I like to say that he and I crossed trails a few times at Northeastern up in Tahlequah during our younger, crazier days, but it was nice to catch up with him and talk with him about what was going on. Now, he got the 2017 Career Achievement Award, an award he so richly deserves, and he has a list of credits that include about 20 years of working in that industry with about 92 productions. Now, if you're still wondering who he is, he's been in Avatar, Last of the Mohegans, and Dances with Wolves, and a number of other films. A couple of them he wishes to forget, but we'll get on with it. Anyway, here's our chance to talk with Ms. Xavier, and following that immediately is our interview with Wes Study.
My name is Celia Xavier, and I'm the founder and executive director of Tribal Film Festival.
Now, we have other film festivals occurring around the country and have been for some years. And this is, your third year now here in Oklahoma?
Yes, this is our third year, and we have a special showcase today in November because it is Native American Heritage Month.
Now, that seems pretty special. It hasn't exactly stopped the world from spinning, but it's important to Native people. And I think that in itself is significant for us to be able to stand up and be proud.
Absolutely. I think that the more that we show our strength in numbers, like tonight, we have almost 400 people coming here tonight to celebrate this, the more impact we'll have in what we call the mass consciousness of people to let them know that, yes, there is an audience for these types of movies, number one, huge audience, and there's also that we're still here, basically. Mm-hmm.
That has been more of a subject for Native people increasingly in the last, let's call it 5 years. It's really sort of intensified. Tribes stand up, rename themselves, cast off the English name, and return to their own roots. Young people now are relearning language and things like that. So it's a real resurgence. And has the film industry kept pace? We've seen some changes, but how would you assess it?
Yes, and I think you're going to, hopefully, when you talk to Chris and Jolie, they were consultants on this film, and they were hired on to make sure that the characters were 3D fully well-rounded characters that were written and shown up on that screen. And I think you're going to see more and more of that, where it's like, as a producer, I get people, they'll tell me, well, they're doing this film, they're doing that film, and it has to do with a tribe or whatever. And, they've done their research on the internet, and they want to cast some white person in this role that's supposed to be Native. And so the ignorance is definitely still there, and I make it my job to call these people out and say, you can't do that. You will have such backlash if you do that. And one of the guys is coming here tonight, actually a producer, and I hope that he, kind of absorbs this information.
What are the bright spots then? I think we've seen some change. We've seen more Native people appear in roles that one would call leading or something comparable to that. Not a huge change, but there's been some kind of minute, perhaps, whatever. How would you characterize that?
Hi, I think. Sorry, I was saying hi to him. I think with the. I think really what happened was Revenant came out and it was a success. And then since then we've seen, as a film director, I've seen a lot more films being made that are Native stories, not necessarily made by Natives, but made very well and with great respect, these stories. And one we're going to show tonight called Lost Face is a short film. And so I think because of that, we've seen a lot more films being made.
I think they've gotten a word somewhat in Hollywood. We'll call it that. Maybe the world isn't accepting red face anymore, and that there are now a growing core of Native actors that are quite capable of handling major roles.
Yes, it's true, and especially here in Oklahoma. There's a lot of actors that I used in my documentary, Playground of the Native Son, that we were so impressed with the talent here because they were natural. They weren't necessarily what we call Hollywood trained. So they were just being themselves, which is what is the ultimate that you want as a director. You want the characters to be playing themselves. Mm-hmm.
Why is it so important that this festival occur here in Oklahoma? It's said that it's the home of the red man, the name of the state. It used to be on the license plates, but still there's a gap there in knowledge. Why?
I think because Oklahoma is home to so many federally recognized tribes. I think you said 39 tribes, and also that this used to be called Indian Territory. So we consider this like ground zero.
Wonderful description there. Now, the things we've seen have been, I think, at least somewhat of a departure from us being the colorful scenery into becoming more of a character, a more important part of the story rather than just a location. Would you agree with that, or how would you describe what's going on there?
Our biggest challenge as filmmakers, because I'm a filmmaker first, is funding and finance. We have a lot of scripts that are ready to go that just need financing, and I think if we can finance a film that is quote unquote native made, then that is successful, then I think we will break through years of, it's been 20 years since Dances with Wolves, so I think we're ready. Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned, of course, funding, which is critical. Without the bucks, nothing happens. Is there enough star power now in Native American ranks of actors to pull it off? You've got an Adam Beach, and of course, tonight's guest, Wes Study, Irene Bedard, and others. Is it there or not, or maybe not quite?
Well, I was just at AFI in November, which is the American Film Market. I would have to be honest and say no. Unless, now there's a lot of, and that what we're hoping for with this movie, Hostiles, is that Wes gets a nomination or a nod at least. And if that happens, then I think that'll be, people are going to start looking at Native people differently.
There have been changes to the Academy. There are more people of color have been added in the last couple of years. Do you think maybe that's enough for someone like Wes to get a nod? I mean, no, it's just speculation, but what do you think?
I think it's enough to, yeah. But, again, it comes down to, I think the tide is turning, and it's kind of like going in our favor. So with the whole backlash of Oscar So White, I think it could happen. And that's what we're postulating here tonight. We're giving him an award for career achievement for his role here. He's done over 92 films and TV. I mean, that's extraordinary for one person, one actor, let alone a Native actor, any actor, period. But he's, Native, and he deserves it. He does.
Now let's shift a little bit here to Hostiles. Now, what have we got here? I'm not familiar with it. I'll be honest. So tell me about what is Hostiles.
Well, it's a period piece. And I don't want to give too much away because we want people to see it. And all I can say is that, you just have to see it. I don't want to talk too much about it.
All right. So in that process, Wes was chosen for this honor. Now, first of all, let's back up and tell me what the honor is, state it, and why, and why Wes?
Okay. Well, I looked at his credits, and he has 92 credits on IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database. So that means he's working like 3 projects a year. And again, like I said, for an actor, that's extraordinary. But for a Native actor, that's incredible. And I think he just deserves more recognition in mainstream America so that he is more of a household name. And by giving him as much publicity as possible is one way of doing it.
Have you been able to gauge the reaction of the Native American moviegoers? Is there some feel, some change, something going on there that you're aware of? First of all, let's start with the production that you're premiering here, Hostiles.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that all about?
Hostiles is I would describe it as an old-fashioned Western that has simply been tweaked and brought to a contemporary audience with contemporary themes and kind of brought up to date for modern audiences.
So it's a departure from what we had seen in so many other Westerns, and actually some of the parts that you had played were sort of reminiscent of what Hollywood perceived us as, but this is a change, right?
No, I don't think I would call it a change in terms of how Hollywood perceives us. I think it may be a change in terms of how audiences may perceive us, and you're talking about Native Americans as you asked that question, I take it. I don't know that that our initial presence on screen is going to be any different from other films we've seen, but if we will take the time to watch the entire story and to watch the character development of both the protagonist, antagonist, and or how the characters relate, I think we can begin to see a better understanding of both sides of the picture.
And now let's kind of look at the industry from what we've seen. There's been kind of an evolution now away from the horses and buckskin kind of thing and into a place where Native American actors are more real people, have been able to develop their characters. And you've been in a number of different films and time zone, shall we say, and played the more traditional roles plus the contemporary stuff. So how would you size all that up? Is there a real change there?
I don't know that we could say that it was change. I think maybe more like the word you used before is evolution. I think we've our characters as Native Americans have evolved into perhaps more developed characters over the years than say in the 1950s and before, when 60s even, when most of our characters were fairly one-dimensional. I think that these days our characters have gained dimension and have been gifted with their own backstories to a certain extent. And I think that our characters are now being written as to be seen as more than just set dressing and or the obstacle to be overcome, or as the out and out antagonists of any of the stories that we've seen in history. But yeah, I think it's true. It's moving in that direction.
When there's a call that goes out for a Native American part, a character to be played, what are you seeing and hearing these days?
Well, I think I'm seeing a call for more, because I think the industry is beginning to realize that there are more and more of us in the business that are capable of handling an acting job. And as compared to the times when I first got started, there were perhaps 3 recognizably American Indian actors in the business at the time, and that would have been like J. Silverheels, the late J. Silverheels, the late Will Sampson, and the late Chief Dan George. When we got started at around the time of Dances with Wolves and Powwow Highway and a few other of those films from back in that time, well, the idea that that there were any Native Americans beyond those 3 who were in the business was kind of prevalent in Hollywood. But I think that from that time on, there have been more and more Native Americans becoming involved and showing that they are capable of doing the work, and so therein we are populating Hollywood with more and more American Indian actors.
Now, how would you describe that core? Now, you've got, you mentioned 3 of the, we'll call them giants, I think, and then there's like a Graham Greene and yourself, Adam Beach, Coriana Kilcher, and Irene Bedard, being called on to do a much more diverse portfolio. So how would you describe, I guess, the core of Native American actors out there today?
I think the core is wide and is talented and is capable. The core is working to continue to be a part of show business and recruiting more as time goes on, as well as there's also the development of Native American cinema, if you will. I mean, over the years, having attended many meetings wherein always the answer was, well, if Hollywood isn't going to portray us in their stories, perhaps we have to begin making our own. And that's one of the positive things about young people these days have, with the advance of technology and with the expense of filming and producing shows of one kind or another has become less expensive. I think more and more people are becoming involved in it and beginning to produce shows that are of the Native American ilk. Things that reflect our values and our systems of living and the things that we believe in. I think is coming to the fore now, simply because young people are capable of telling their own stories and have the technological education and know-how to get it done, and that's a great thing. So I see the future as looking very bright for Native American cinema.
Well, I certainly would agree with you there. Now, I think one of the pivotal points was one of the films you mentioned, Smoke Signals, and then there was Powwow Highway, where actually we saw that Native point of view coming across, and the addition of some comic scenes that I know that my friends and myself really enjoyed seeing. So do you see more of that kind of thing on the horizon where Native people are still holding the reins on productions like that?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are a number of young people now who are beginning to produce, and they're beginning to be noticed by the industry itself. And I think that I think yes, it's moving on, and the world is beginning to see that yes, there is a lot of talent here in the Native American communities, and I think it's simply we're at the beginning of it. I hope I can be able to stay with it for as long as we rise to the top of it all,
Well, it's been a long time since you and I crossed trails, I guess, first time in Tahlequah, Northeastern. And you've done 92 productions, is that correct?
I don't count. I will not. No, I will not fall into your trap. I do not count how many I've done. I will not jinx myself.
Well, I don't really think that was my intent, but I was just wanting to say that's pretty impressive portfolio for any actor.
Well, I guess so. I'd like to do more.
Is there something out there that you still would like to do?
Oh yeah, there's plenty out there that I'd still like to do. Yeah, and what it is, I can't tell you. I can't put into words what it is that I want to do. Because I don't want to limit myself.
Okay. We're going to wrap this up pretty quick and get out of your way. I know there are still people who want to see, but what's in the future for you now?
In the future for me is looking for more work, continuing on with the business, and climbing the ladder as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And finally, how have Native people reacted? You're pretty big stuff when you come down around Indian country there.
Well, I think I'm like a lot of other things, like a lot of other films in the world, a lot of stories in the world. People either hate me or love me. And hopefully some in between.
Okay, that's pretty hard to top. So we'll close it there, and I'll get out of your way. I know you're incredibly busy. Wes Study, I want to say Wado. Appreciate you taking time for me.
Oh, wow.
Wes Study, he was presented with the 2017 Career Achievement Award from the Indian Film Festival. Now, he's been in films like, Avatar, Last of the Mohegans, and, of course, Dances with Wolves. Now, the festival featured his latest film with Christian Bale called Hostels. And I couldn't get either Ms. Cecilia or Wes to talk about too much about the movie, but they said it deals with the fact that we're all hostiles in one way or another, and have been throughout the history, or perhaps into the future. Might have to agree with them there. Now, if you're interested in seeing this film, Hostels is scheduled for full release on December 22nd. Let's take, while we're kind of looking at the movie business, let me take a second here to share something with you that was not real great news that I don't think anyone wanted to hear, and that was the death of Steve Rivas. Now, if you're not familiar with him, he was one of the warriors in Last of the Dogmen. And I think my favorite role was seeing him in Fargo as Shep Proudfoot, along with Frances McDormand and others in that incredible film. And I think my favorite scene from that film was Shep and Steve Buscemi. Now, my wife told me that she and an Alaska Native woman were watching that film in Anchorage, and when that scene came on, they couldn't help but start giggling and laughing. And pretty soon, if you've seen the film, I'll tell you, Shep Proudfoot takes a belt and really wails on Steve Buscemi, and two Native women are in this audience full of white folks, and they were laughing, and no one else was. So, anyway, that's was my favorite, most memorable scene. So, goodbye, Steve Rivas. You gave us a wonderful chance to be proud of Indians and have a laugh or two. He was 55 and member of the Blackfeet Nation. Okay, well, let's get on with what else we've got to do. Dig them out here. These are our community announcements. And by the way, folks, if you've got something you need to share with the community, you got to get a hold of me at Mvskoke Media, and we see if we can't help you out and work it in. Merry Christmas to you from MCN Transit. They've got Free Ride Friday coming up one more time. We'll be running free for those on their shopping routes on Friday, December 15th. So you can get all your shopping done early and ride in style, not have to worry about traffic or parking. Now, you'll look around, there'll be designated vehicles, and it's a free ride around Okemah here. Also, in the Christmas vein, the Mvskoke Nation Youth Council is having its Christmas gift bingo. That's coming up Saturday the 16th. That'll be at the Mvskoke Dome over on the fairgrounds, with the doors opening at 1 p.m. and bingo starts at 2 p.m. Now, they have, of course, bingo packs for $10. Concessions will be available in a special blackout game for a grand prize. So if you're interested in Christmas gift bingo, it's 918-549-2557. And again, that is Saturday, December 16th at the Mvskoke Dome. Okay, now we have discounted tickets for the ballet for Mvskoke Creek citizens and employees to any show during the 2017-2018 Tulsa Ballet season. And right now, they are featuring one of my co-hosts' favorites. Darren DeLon says he always takes his daughter to see The Nutcracker. So that's the 2017-2018 season. And they have other presentations that you would be eligible with for a discounted ticket. Now, to take advantage of it, you need to call Sherry Nabosny at 918-392-5914. That'd be a wonderful way to start and finish your holiday season. Okay, while you're out buying gifts, remember that Mvskoke Media has some T-shirts and other real fine items for sale, so you might want to include one of those. They have 2 T-shirts in black, one with the Miko design with the skull and braids, and also, that's the playing card called Miko, and the other one is the Jadi with the skull and braids. They're available for $15 and $10 respectively. They have bags and mugs also. And if you're interested, you might want to get a hold of them early, because some of the larger sizes are being sold out very quickly, and we have a limited quantity of those. So it's available at Mvskoke Media at 918-732-7720. And let's see, looks like I'm out of ammo here, and we still have some time to kill. I think we'll just let it go and get out of your way earlier. I just want to say, Mado Mabu Hedgetscut, this is Gary Fife, Joe Jeff Gados. Thank you for joining me, and we'll have hopefully a special Christmas show coming up and at the end of this month. So stay with us here on 1240 The Brew. Mado. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.